Perhaps I really have lost my fastball. Big Deke news. So the Steelers finalized their 53-man roster today. And I don't know if I got one of the fringe guys right. I think I whiffed all over the place here. But I will say, I don't think the Steelers are done with their roster. They still have some weird moves to make, like putting people on IR, maybe calling people back. I think it's not finalized, even though it is finalized. There's still more things to do between now and week one. Let's look at the offense first. Let's go through the offense, then we'll go through the defense. On offense, we have 4 quarterbacks. And what did I say about the Steelers keeping 4 quarterbacks? I didn't think we were going to do it. Will Howard needs to be put on IR, which is what Jerry Dulac is saying is what's going to happen between now and week one. At some point, I don't know exactly what the holdup is. Maybe we're trying to trade Skylar Thompson. We could see if we can make some type of move, get a draft pick for him. And with Will Howard's health looking like it's getting to almost 100%, we could just keep Will Howard then. It'd be Rodgers, Will Howard, and Mason Rudolph as our 3 if we could ship Skylar Thompson off. But if there's no offers for Skylar Thompson, we could say, Will Howard, not 100% just yet, 97, 98%. Let's put him on IR for the first 4 weeks. Keep Skylar Thompson here for QB3, see what the QB landscape looks like, and delay the decision. So that still needs to happen. That's what I mean. This isn't fully finalized just yet. I think it's pretty damn close. I mean, we did get it down to 53. But there's still extra moves to be made. Running backs, as expected, Kenneth Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren. Wide receivers, as expected. I did predict this. Calvin Austin III, DK Metcalf, Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek, and Roman Wilson. Robert Woods was cut. There is potential, according to some reporters, that Woods could maybe come back at some point. He's intending on playing in 2025. I guess maybe if there's an injury or something. I think if we're going to bring in another receiver, it's going to be from the outside, and it's going to be some sort of upgrade to the guys that are in the room already. Tight ends, and actually we'll get to that in a little bit because Rodgers was making some calls about a former teammate. Tight ends, Pat Frymuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, tight end / fullback, Connor Hayward. That's kind of expected. Offensive line, Calvin Anderson, Spencer Anderson, Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, Broderick Jones, Ryan McCollum, Mason McCormick, Andrus Peat, and Isaac Seumalo. The only one I missed on this was Calvin Anderson made it over Dylan Cook. Both of those guys were on the fringe. I thought the nod was going to go to Dylan Cook, but Calvin Anderson got it. So another whiff for me there, another miss. I guess, are we considering the Will Howard one a miss yet? Like him actually making the roster? I did predict him being put on IR. I did predict that we're only going to have 3 quarterbacks. But that move still needs to be made. So really, so far, only one miss. Now when we get to the defense, though, that's where I got a lot of whiffs all over the place. So first, defensive line. I think a lot of people did, though. That's another thing. I don't think anyone thought Ezezi Odomweo was going to make the team here. So defensive line and Isaiah Loudermilk. We kept 8 defensive linemen. It's Keanu Benton, Y.A. Black, Daniel Aquale, Derek Harmon, Cam Hayward, Logan Lee, Isaiah Loudermilk, and Ezezi Odomweo. Like he's the one that surprised everyone, I think. And the fact that we kept 8 defensive linemen. Now, maybe it makes sense considering the Derek Harmon injury. He might be out for the first week or two. So we're just making sure we got the trenches on defense shored up, especially with how after the last season ended. We don't want to mess around with that. But it also means, like, DeMarvin Leal was cut. Like, that spot right there, because I did mention there was a path, depending on how many defensive backs that we keep. Maybe you keep both Isaiah Loudermilk and DeMarvin Leal, but Leal, not here anymore. And we weren't able to get a trade for him either, so he's out there on waivers. Who knows if he comes back to practice squad or gets picked up by another team. But Steelers aren't that concerned about it, obviously. It was time for us to move on from DeMarvin Leal. Tomlin, even though Jerry Dulac said he liked DeMarvin Leal, obviously didn't like him that much. Linebackers, Carson Bruner, Malik Harrison, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Cole Holcomb, Patrick Queen, Jack Sawyer, TJ Watt, Peyton Wilson. No surprises there outside of Carson Bruner. You could have made the case of Mark Robinson over Bruner, but Bruner has the last name. And if you felt like it was pretty equal between Bruner and Mark Robinson for that 5th inside linebacker spot, and what they could do on special teams. Steelers went with the youth on this one. And then defensive backs. Some head scratchers here. Brandon Echols, Deshaun Elliott, Dante Kent, Miles Killebrew, Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Juan Thornhill. A couple names missing here. Beanie Bishop, James Pierre, Corey Trice, although Corey Trice has an IR designation, so he's still around. We'll see what happens when he gets healthy, if we're going to pull him up to the 53 and drop someone at that point. But Corey Trice, he's sticking around a little bit. But also Chuck Clark. Kind of weird, bro. And then special teams, Chris Boswell, Christian Kuntz, and Corliss Waitman. Corliss Waitman was another one that I got wrong. I thought we were going to keep Cam Johnson. So, yeah, I missed on a lot. I thought Beanie Bishop was going to make it. I thought James Pierre was going to make it. Chuck Clark. I thought Mark Robinson over Carson Bruner. Missed on a couple of the defensive linemen with Loudermilk and Azezi. Thought it was going to be DeMarvin Leal. And then the one on offense being Dylan Cook versus Calvin Anderson. So, man, that's not good. That's not a good performance for me. I mean, you could say I got, 48 or like 47 of the 53 right, but anyone could literally get at least like 44, 45 of the 53 right, because most of them are locks to make the team anyway. It comes down to like the last, 10, 8, 9 that you're debating over, and man, I got about like 50% on that, 50% score. I'd go with a failing grade there. Not good. But I'm telling you, I think a lot of people missed on some of these. Everyone thought Chuck Clark was going to make it. Dante Kent, out of nowhere. We didn't even see him in preseason. Over James Pierre, a guy that's been around, has done special teams work for us. Got the pick in the preseason. Beanie Bishop coming off of 4 picks last year. And even though his last preseason game was weird in terms of his availability, still played pretty decent in the first 2 preseason games. And, I didn't see there really being a reason why he wouldn't make the team. There wasn't anything glaring. Just weird how he handled that 3rd preseason game that he didn't show up for the game. But then Dante Kent. Yeah, I guess we really like Dante Kent. Almost like Troy Favatanu last year. It's like this hidden secret that only the Steelers coaching staff knows about, because when we saw Favatanu in preseason, that one game before he got hurt, wasn't looking too good, and I don't think the reports coming out of camp was that he was completely lighting it up or anything. So maybe the same thing with Dante Kent. He does have upside. Coming out of the MAC, Central Michigan, fast 40. So maybe, the Steelers just valued that potential over Beanie Bishop, and the fact that we already got our top 3 corners set in place. We know these guys are going to be playing pretty much every snap, and Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and then Brandon Echols is the 4. Beanie Bishop, at best, would be the 5. So if you're talking about competition for that 5th spot, Steelers just value potential there with Dante Kent, and then even keeping Corey Trice around, because Beanie Bishop's upside is limited. You just know that for a fact. I still think he's a good player, but you probably weren't going to get any more additional development from Beanie this year because of the expected lack of playing time with the corners in front of him. Just weird. Yeah, weird. I wasn't expecting it. Now, with Chuck Clark, with him being a vested veteran and us cutting him, I could see there being a wink-wink deal that once we put Will Howard on IR, or if we put Derek Harmon on IR, even though I don't think that's expected, because if you're putting him on IR for the first 4 weeks, then he's not available for the first 4 games. They're saying he might only be out for a game or 2, speaking of Derek Harmon. So, if there's 1 or 2 more players that we got to move around a little bit, there's going to be an opening for Chuck Clark to come back. So that's one of my predictions. I think Chuck Clark played good in the preseason, and I think we're going to need an additional guy in this secondary, and with this safety room being what it is, with Juan Thornhill, Deshaun Elliott, unless we're like that set on Jalen Ramsey playing significant snaps at safety, I'm not buying that though right away. I think it's going to be like a 75-25 split, at least 75 at corner, whether you want to divvy those up on the outside and the inside, but then like another 25 max at safety, at least to start the season. Maybe he gets more comfortable with the new position as the season goes, but I feel like we could use the extra guy in that safety room. with it only being Deshaun Elliott at Juan Thornhill right now. I have faith in those guys, but the insurance would help. So that's the other thing. We could have just kept a Chuck Clark over one of these extra defensive linemen. You can make that case. But yeah, this is the squad. I'm trying to think of anything else that was notable here. Yeah, Will Howard on IR. So there's gonna be one more spot because we're not gonna do the 4 quarterbacks. We're only gonna do 3. My guess is it would be Chuck Clark coming back. That would be my guess. And then James Pierre, he's waiting in the wings. I could see him being practice squad. I could see the same thing for Beanie Bishop, but easily with Bishop coming off of the rookie year that he had, I could see another team picking him up and actually giving him starting slot corner reps. Because he's not getting that here. At the end of the day, bro, the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, fringe spot on this team isn't going to make or break us. It's going to come down to, I've said it multiple times this offseason, Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers again, the defense being at least top 10, hopefully top 5, and hopefully living up to that, elite potential that they can be. And that's pretty much it. The O-line being good, starting O-line being good. That's what it's going to come down to. Really, that's it. Aaron Rodgers playing like Aaron Rodgers, being an elite quarterback, and the defense being solid. That's it. It's not going to come down to Carson Bruner versus Mark Robinson. It's not going to come down to Dante Kent versus Beanie Bishop. Although, with Beanie, man, it seems like when he's out there, plays happen. It seems like, if he gets that opportunity, like if one of our corners do go down and Beanie's got to play in a 2 or 3 game stretch, maybe 20 or 30% of the snaps, something good seems to happen when Beanie's out there. So maybe that's the one. I would have liked to have kept Beanie Bishop. I really would have. I did predict James Pierre, but I'm not stressing over that. Steelers have let him go a couple times, but then he's come back. Yeah, I'm not worried about James Pierre. Dante Kent, again, seems like the guy with the more upside between not only him and James Pierre, but even a Beanie Bishop, and then Corey Trice. He's just always hurt. The Dante Kent one, a little surprising. We must really value him, though. We must see something in him. Anything else? Let me look at my notes here. Last thing, and this goes back to whenever I was talking about the receiver room and the thought of Robert Woods potentially coming back. It would almost be like one of those situations I was talking about with Chuck Clark, with him being a vested veteran, doesn't have to go through waivers, doesn't have to worry about getting picked up by another team. He could wait, assess the landscape. If he wants to come back and the Steelers are interested in bringing him back, that can happen. I think that's way more viable with Chuck Clark than Robert Woods. But going back to that, where I was like, if we're going to do the receiver thing, I don't think it's going to be Robert Woods coming back. I think it's, unless an injury happens, I think it's going to be we trade for someone or sign someone not named Robert Woods who would be kind of an upgrade to the receiver room. And one of those names, we've mentioned him a couple times this offseason, will be one of Aaron Rodgers' former teammates and one of his favorite receivers in his last season in Green Bay, and that's Romeo Doubs. Aaron Rodgers actually checked in based off some reports with the Packers on Romeo Doubs' status, just like, kind of what's going on there. So Aaron Rodgers playing a little GM there. Now, we didn't like that when he did it with the Jets. I'm not going to hate on this with him inquiring about Romeo Doubs, because I think Romeo Doubs is a guy I would rather have over someone like Alan Lazard, and just, how the Jets were getting their personnel and stuff. Romeo Doubs would be a nice piece. So Rodgers inquiring. Obviously, Omar Khan, Tomlin, Steelers got to make the final decision on that. But it doesn't seem like he's available. Matt LaFleur keeps denying that Doubs is going to be traded, or the fact that he's available at all. But that would be a piece. That would be a nice little pickup right there. Now, do we cut a guy like Ben Skoranek in the process, or Scotty Miller with bringing in Romeo Doubs? Honestly, maybe Connor Hayward would be someone that becomes expendable. But that's probably not happening because of his last name. And I actually do think Rodgers likes him. He might be a piece in this offense. that could be, I mean, that could be something. Maybe we stick with the secondary as is, and once we put Howard on IR, open up that spot, we just bring in another receiver. Whether it's signing someone, trading for someone. We talked about Jacoby Myers yesterday, and the fact, too, that the Steelers are still looking in the receiver market. Just with the defensive backs one. That's the weird one. The fact that we kept the extra D lineman, and then the defensive backs, how light we are in the secondary. Little shocking. Little shocking, especially with Dante Kent being one of them, a guy that we haven't seen at all in preseason. You can't have that much faith in Dante Kent contributing like that in the regular season. Unless, as I mentioned, he's like a hidden gem, like a Troy Fautanu. Tomlin knows something that we don't, and he's going to be, week one just coming out of nowhere, doing some cool stuff on special teams, randomly making a play or two on defense out of nowhere. We'll see. But I'm expecting, if I had to bet right now, it's either Chuck Clark's coming back, Will Howard's going to IR, and we may make another receiver move, but we may. If the price is right. I don't think we're stressing about it too much, though. If Jacoby Myers can be had for a discount or something that Omar Khan likes, something like that could happen, or, Romeo Doubs, but I think we do like what we got right now, especially with the extra tight ends and how they're going to be utilizing the offense. But that's it for the 53-man roster breakdown here. Let me know your thoughts. What cuts were most shocking, surprising? Where did the Steelers screw up? Where did they get it right? Drop your takes in the comments. But that's it. I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe we'll go over, probably for tomorrow, we'll go over who's available out there. Like, let's look at the landscape of the league and all the players that got cut, and maybe a player or two that we could bring in to either take up that extra spot that's going to be available once Will Howard goes to IR, or replace someone that's already on the roster right now. But that's it. Stay chilling. Peace.